Did you ever think that being a school bus monitor could be so dangerous? I'm Charlie Sykes, and Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, the president invokes executive privilege and a House committee finds Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress for withholding documents related to the gun running scandal known as Fast and Furious. MPS is number 4. Milwaukee's schools spend more per pupil than all but 3 urban school districts. The U.S. Supreme Court prepares to release rulings on immigration and Obamacare.
Karen, you're fat. You're so fat. You take up like the whole entire seat. Oh, no. Oh my God, your glasses are foggy from your freaking sweat, you fat.
This video of an elderly school bus monitor being bullied by students goes viral, and supporters end up raising more than $500,000 to support the victim. Mitt Romney comes to Wisconsin. The Heat wins the NBA title. So can we get back to talking about baseball now? But we started with some new poll numbers in the race for U.S. Senate. The Marquette University Law poll showed former Governor Tommy Thompson with a big lead over both of his Republican and Democratic opponents in the poll. In the primary, Thompson leads the four-way field with 34%, followed by Mark Newman at 16%, Eric Hovde at 14%, and Speaker Jeff Fitzgerald at 10% among likely voters. Thompson also led Democrat Tammy Baldwin by 49% to 41%. But the poll also found that a lot of voters were undecided. Fully 25% of Republican voters said they hadn't made up their mind what to do in the August 14th primary. Now, joining me on our panel this morning, political strategist for Milwaukee County Supervisor Linda Bruin, political consultant Mary Jo Boss, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Michael Holt, and the MacIver Institute's Brian Fraley. Okay, Brian, we actually don't have that many weeks to go before the primary. So what is the central dynamic now in this Republican race?
Two things. One, the ground game that we won't see, and then the TV ads that are coming back that we will see. Look, if Jeff Fitzgerald could raise $2 million and get on TV, I think he could win this primary. But if I was 7 feet tall, I'd be at my ideal weight. So, I mean, there's a lot of ifs in politics. He can't climb over that hurdle. Tommy has a serious and significant lead, and we'll see how those undecideds play out. We don't even know what turnout's going to be like in an August primary. A lot of those undecideds may stay home.
Right. We have never seen a primary in the middle of August where a lot of people are on vacation. Michael Holt.
Yeah, you know, I don't think this is a surprise to anybody that Tommy Thompson, who probably has the best name recognition, you know, Mark Newman has lost consecutive races, you know, that Hovde is third, though, is a little bit surprising to me. I mean, he's come out the box throwing all his money out there for commercials.
But $3-4 million and only, 14% of the vote.
But, you know, such a large undecided, you know, I still think it's Tommy Thompson's to lose.
Okay, Mary Jo.
Well, I think there's two factors. As long as it's a four-way race, I think Tommy Thompson is going to win, unless there's a coalition that comes together behind one candidate. If it's vote is split, Tommy's got it. But the other thing is, we don't know where third-party money is going. If you have a huge influx of national money coming from one candidate or another,
what would be most likely, and who would it be targeting? I mean, I'm thinking National Club for Growth might be supporting Newman, might be running some anti-Tommy Thompson ads. Right?
I think that could have a big difference. I think as long as Tommy portrays himself as the future and as a conservative, he's all right.
Okay.
Well, I agree with Brian. I think that the people who are not decided probably aren't passionate enough to go to the polls and vote in August, unless there's some concerted campaign by the more conservative wing of the party that says unite around somebody and show up. So I think the chances are highly likely that Thompson's got it, unless everyone co-joins under a more conservative
here are the real
person.
central dynamics in this race, is that nobody's paying any attention to this race. People are burned out from the recall election. It's the middle of summer. You really have a 4-week campaign now because let's figure, you know, this week, July 4th weekend, people aren't going to be paying that much attention. Then you have a 4-week sprint until this election. Not much time to run a lot of ads because people are not watching television in the middle of summer. So it's a very strange dynamic how, you know, to figure out who's going to come in. I guess the question will be, if you're Mark Newman or you're Eric Hovde and you are this far behind at this point, do you go negative on Tommy Thompson, and what are the risks of doing that?
Well, I think Newman will. I think Hovde will hold back. They will go negative on Tommy, and so will Club for Growth on Newman's behalf. The risks are huge, especially if you're Mark Newman, who the last time you ran statewide, you went negative pretty hard on our rock star governor, Scott Walker.
Yeah. Okay.
I think in the end, it's going to be all the other candidates going negative on Tommy, and Tommy's going to have to say, but I can beat Baldwin.
Right.
And that's what in the end will get him through, is he can beat the Democrat.
Okay, but if everybody is going negative on him at the same time, I mean, there does almost a game of political chicken going on here between some of the two more conservative candidates, Hovde and Newman, saying, you know, you go first. Because, of course, in Wisconsin politics, part of that dynamic is you go after Tommy Thompson, you might bring him down, but you might kill yourself as well. So in a three-way race, the person on the, the third person could perhaps benefit from that, watching the leaders nuke each other out. Four-way race is a little bit more, it's a little bit more complicated, right?
I don't think it'll be a four-way race. I think we're going to see the field narrow a little bit.
But I think the independents and the moderates will stay out. They'll stay home. That they aren't, because a lot of them, because they're not really into politics that much, won't even be noticing the race, et cetera. Or they might assume that Thompson's got it in the bag and won't show up. So I do think that it could be significantly closer than the polls are showing when they actually vote.
I think it will be closer because, to be honest about it, Tommy does have some vulnerabilities here. I mean, he's got a huge amount of goodwill out there. I mean, we just call him Tommy. But on the other hand, they polled this. We know when you throw support for healthcare reform, when you talk about some of his record of spending as governor, there is a drop off. The question, though, is who benefits from that? And that's the trickiest question.
And
Nobody
does it
seems to
get
know.
split? Even if it gets split only two ways or three ways.
Mary Jo, what were you talking about, by the way? You said the race is going to narrow. I mean, you got 4 people on the ballot. How much can it narrow?
I don't think Fitzgerald is going to stay. Not because he's not a good candidate.
He's on the ballot. You think he's going to drop out of the race?
Well, who knows? Who knows if he endorses someone else? I just don't see him having enough time. It's not that he's not a good candidate. I don't see him having the time to get the statewide ID that he needs.
And conversely, it wouldn't shock me to see Fitzgerald come in second in the primary.
But his name's going to be on the ballot, regardless. Even if he dropped out, his name's on the ballot.
Because Scott Walker just won basically a referendum on what Jeff Fitzgerald ushered through the legislature last year. He's got a lot of goodwill with the base that's going to come out and vote. So again, the big question mark is early August. We don't know what that means.
Well, that's the other thing, that if in fact this goes negative, you go to the polls on August 14th, and the one guy that nobody's going to be mad at is Speaker Jeff Fitzgerald. So, I mean, there's a reason for him just to hang around. Still ahead on Sunday Insight, Milwaukee's crime numbers, are they up or are they down? And as we go to break, the class picture from Mitt Romney's visit to Janesville. Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus, Congressman Paul Ryan, and Governor Scott Walker all take the stage. Romney expects them to deliver.
But you know what? We're going to win Wisconsin. We're going to get the White House.
Well, there were mistakes, but they weren't intentional. That was Chief Ed Flynn's message last week as he unveiled the results of an internal audit that found thousands of assaults had been misreported since 2006. But, Flynn said, the errors did not change the fact that crime, in fact, had been going down in the city of Milwaukee. Before the audit, the chief had said that violent crime in the city was down 2.3% in 2011. After the audit, he said, violent crime was down 2.4%.
There are fewer coding errors now than there were 6 years ago when the system was new. And when you add those coding errors to the total crime rate, we are still moving in a positive direction.
Okay, Linda Bruin, there's been a lot of controversy, a lot of pounding on this. Did he clear the errors sufficiently?
Well, I think he did. He went a long way toward it. The problem is, he did make the point, that I think rather effectively, if you believe his statistic, that there was a higher error rate in the 2 years before he came than the 2 years after. The problem is the error rate is still 12.5 times what the FBI would like it to be. On the other hand, crime is down, 25% in the last 5-6 years, so that's a plus. So I think he responded to it fairly effectively, but the Journal-Sentinel was right to bring all this up and to say, wait a minute, this is not as rosy of a picture as we seem to think it is.
I agree that the Journal-Sentinel was absolutely right to bring it to our attention. The problem is, with most of these things, it's more of a PR problem. If you open your books, the answer is always to open the books. I think as far as the public goes, knowing that crime is going down, that is the ultimate question, and I think he's effectively answered.
Well, I think there were two major questions. Number one, is crime going down? And number two, were the errors intentional? Were they cooking the books, or is it really a computer error? So it's the trend, and then it's the motivation. Okay, Michael Holt.
Well, some aldermen criticized the Journal-Sentinel, said they were attacking him. But we wouldn't even have this discussion. It wasn't for the Journal-Sentinel to bring this up originally anyway. So what we're saying is, it was not a callous attempt to bring about fraudulent figures. It was just ineptitude that predated the chief.
Right.
And people are blaming it on computer errors. These things are entered by hand, and it's been done the same way for 8 years.
Yeah.
So there's an aptitude here somewhere, and the buck has to stop with the chief of police.
Okay. Brian Freeland.
Okay, first of all, if you're a police officer in the city of Milwaukee, you're doing a great job, and thank you and God bless you for it. I couldn't do that myself. God bless you. But other than that, there aren't a lot of heroes in this whole thing. Okay, I like the chief, I do, but you know, he gets pretty touchy when you question him, and when you ask him certain things a little bit, he's very, very defensive. So that he didn't do himself any help there on the PR thing. But I do think he's done a great job. The statistics do show it. The corrected, revised statistics do show it. The Journal-Sentinel did somewhat of a decent job in bringing up the story, but then they jump to conclusions and say, therefore, the crime rate is not going down, and that wasn't true because they only looked at 1 or 2 years.
See, you're right. Remember the movie Absence of Malice with Sally Field and Newman in it? There was that phrase that something was accurate but not true. So yes, it was accurate that there weren't coding, but then they extrapolated from that and they made the leap that maybe they had doctored the numbers to make an increase in crime look like a decrease in crime. And there was a logical fallacy that they didn't have the numbers for 2010 and 2009. Chief Flynn, you know, we were saying he was touchy. What he was saying was, how can you make this allegation? So basically what the newspaper did, accurately and legitimately calling attention to these coding errors, then raised the question of whether he was cooking the books, whether this was intentional, and whether the crime rate was really going down. And now we're finding out that the crime rate has been going down, the error rate's been going down, and in fact, I think it's very hard to argue that there was any intentional cooking of the books. Was the Walker campaign unfair to run ads suggesting that he was, Mary Jo Voss?
I don't know what information they had at the time, but if they're going by published information, they could have waited on it, but the election was coming up.
Yeah. Oh, I think that this is what happens when you have, you know, you only rely on one source of information, which was the paper, and then there isn't enough time to find out the facts yourself, and you've got an election. I mean, the same thing could be said about the Barrett campaign or supporters of Barrett and the whole investigation on Walker. Campaigns put forward ads based on incomplete information at the time, and unless you could show that they were carrying the controversy even further and making it even worse of a misrepresentation, then to me it's fair game.
Okay, now coming up on Sunday Insight, how much is MPS spending per student and what are we getting for it? And as we go to break, Jay Leno on an upcoming Mitt Romney appearance.
And the NAACP announced that Mitt Romney will speak at their convention next month. I think Mitt's a little confused. He thinks NAACP stands for National Association for the Advancement of Corporate Profits. It's a different organization. So I don't know if he's prepared.
So where did it all go? That was one question taxpayers asked last week after a new report showed that MPS's spending per pupil was one of the highest in the nation. The district spent $14,038 per pupil in 2010, higher than all but 3 other urban school districts on the East Coast. But that has not translated into higher performance or better graduation rates, and Supervisor Gregory Thornton made this admission. Because of legacy and structural costs, he said, we were not geared toward driving those dollars back into the classroom. What we have to be is more effective and efficient. Your thoughts, Michael Holt?
And you're going to see that next year when the teachers' union contract expires. In 2013 school year, you're going to see a whole bunch of changes, ironically, because of Act 10. MPS
ironically. For you, MPS, ironically.
You know, MPS now has the power to restructure. Now, as for, you know, I don't know why people are surprised at this $14,000 figure, because we've been saying it for like 10 years. It's been $14,000. Because when people criticize school choice, we say they get $6,200. They get twice as much, and we get a 50% dropout rate.
This is what's fascinating. Wisconsin Policy Research Institute had a study last week, talking about the fiscal death spiral in MPS. In 10 years, more than 50% of the entire, all of the state aid and property tax levy will go for pensions and health care benefits, which means that less than half the money will go for teacher salaries or anything that goes inside the classroom. Unless this changes, the system will be eaten from within by these benefits.
And that's at the top of his agenda,
right?
Dr. Thornton's agenda. Right now, people need to understand this. For every dollar NPS spends for a teacher, they have to set aside 70 cents for benefits, for pensions and health care. They've been forced to take on this healthcare system owned by the teachers and paying these astronomical prices for it. You're going to see a lot of that change next year.
So am I right that this is one of the reasons why you wanted to recall the governor, because he was giving you the tools to fix that problem?
Well, he also cut $8 million from the budget, from MPS budget.
Okay,
so that's a struggle with that.
You get the irony here?
Yeah. For 3 years at the MacGyver Institute, we've been tracking the expenditures and lack of educational achievement at MPS. Let's look at this here. The average MPS teacher compensation, this is salary and benefits, $106,000. That's $34,000 more than the average across the state of Wisconsin. Where is this money going to? It's going to the union negotiated benefit the benefit through the collective bargaining, which can no longer happen. Thanks to Act 10, thanks to the Republicans in the legislature and our rock star governor, I love saying that because it drives the liberals nuts, they can address this. I mean, we did a story 2 years ago how they have painters who paint the inside of the classrooms, that their salary and benefits were $98,000 a year.
Okay, Linda Bruin.
Well, I think in addition to that 70 cents on the dollar, which is what you're all talking about, once you get to the 30 cents that's left over, even within that amount, kids are not getting as much money because it's spent disproportionately, because a lot of the kids with special needs are funneled out of the private system into MPS. And so once you get into the classroom, they do have a higher base level expenditures because you have to meet those needs as well. So it's a double whammy, but clearly the biggest issue is the 70 cents.
Okay, Mary Jo Buss.
Well, you know, obviously Act 10 is going to help, but I think another thing that showed in that report is when people think you're going to cut money in the school system, they think you're going to fewer pencils and fewer teachers. That's not going to cut it. There is simply not enough there that you can cut to make a difference. It appears that the only thing they're going to be able to do is have fewer people in the MPS traditional classroom. The more kids you have into these charter schools they're investigating within MPS, the non-union Montessori schools and these non-traditional charters, where they pay less. There's the school only gets about $7,700. There's that pot of money that the difference between what they get for the student and what they pay for the student, and that's what they're going to have to use to pay all these benefits.
And you know, Michael, here's the thing. It wasn't Scott Walker who was taking money out of the classrooms. It was these teachers union, pension benefits and the retiree benefits and all those other things that were negotiated through collective bargaining. That's what was draining the classroom. Next on Sunday Inside, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Linda Bruin, you're first.
Last week in Menominee Falls, a wife found her husband's copies of the Shepherd Express and the Onion in the trunk of his car and then physically attacked him because she considers them pornography. This woman is my loser because the papers aren't pornographic and because disliking your husband's readings choices is not sufficient grounds for domestic abuse. Her husband's my winner because only brave people with a sense of humor read papers like the Shepherd Express and the Onion in the lovely but conservative Menominee Falls.
Mary Jo Buss.
My winner is Karen Klein, the senior bus monitor who was bullied by middle school thugs in New York. The bullies are now national pariahs. Middle schoolers across the country are thinking about the impact of their actions, and an online fund started to send the monitor on the vacation of a lifetime is now up to $500,000. My loser, by invoking executive privilege in the Fast and Furious investigation, Barack Obama has managed to make himself preemptively guilty of something in this gun-running scandal. Ironically, in an effort to make the scandal go away, his abuse of executive privilege has assured that it will not.
Michael Holt.
Winners consumers, for the first time in the last year or so, gasoline is under $3.50 a gallon. We have a Barack Obama to thank for that, right? And my losers, the black community. If you fall for this idiotic conspiracy against Jason Fields and other black Democrats, then we're some of the biggest fools in Milwaukee. Chris Larson and his crew of missionaries not only want to control black politics, but they want to get rid of any black politician who puts his people before the party.
Brian Fraley.
Amen, Brother Michael. My winner this week is 12-year-old Blake Parker, who saw his wish to meet our rock star Governor Scott Walker granted through the Make-A-Wish program. Blake was born with a congenital heart disease and had 3 surgeries already and is waiting for a heart transplant. He's a joyful reminder of the importance of organ, blood, and bone marrow donation. Congratulations, Blake. You rock. My losers this week are Senate Dems who are complaining about the $10,000 cost of the recount in Racine. This after they spent $24 million to protest the Capitol, to have it cleaned up, to police it, and then to hold these recall elections in the first place. Give me a break.
And my losers, well, the nasty foul-mouthed brats who bullied a 68-year-old school bus monitor. Someday maybe they'll watch a video of what they did and feel ashamed, assuming, of course, that there's internet access in hell. And yes, I know they're apologizing. Winners, all the folks across the country who stepped up to help Karen Klein, donating more than $500,000 so that she can go on vacation and maybe even quit her crappy job. So maybe there is hope after all. Thanks for joining us and join me for my radio show on Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. Have a great week.